Well, hey, you probably guessed it. I'm not Dr. Brent, but I get to be mentored by Dr. Brent. And here's a question. Do you have a mentor? How do we even get mentors? And what does it look like to have a mentor in your life? Well, in this podcast, we're going to be answering all those questions and how you can get a mentor and what that relationship actually should look like.
Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to this edition of Creating the Future with me, Dr. Brent Simpson. And today, my good friend, Pastor Joshua Jordan, one of our pastors here at Arise Church. And this is the show where we want to dive into stories and truths and deep questions that help us shape our faith, our family, and of course, ultimately, our future. Now, my amazing administrative assistant, Gabby, recently posted on social media because she kind of runs my social media. She had this idea of me answering questions, and I love that idea. I love to answer questions. It's one of my favorite things I get to do. The apologist in me loves that. And so Gabby had actually put a post out that said, I'll answer your questions. Some of those questions are short-term 30-second answers, 60-second answers that she wants to turn into reels to use on social media and respond. But some of the other questions are much bigger questions. And so those questions we're going to turn into a podcast. And that's exactly what today is. This is the podcast show where we are answering questions about mentorship, because there was a number of those that came in, and answering those questions today on the show. So with that being said, I'm not hosting it today. You're hosting it. Pastor Josh is hosting it, and I just get to be the one who's being asked the questions today.
Right.
So,
awesome.
So let's jump into mentor questions.
Awesome. Sweet. So we do have a number of mentor questions, but I think like the first one that's going to set up everything else is, how do we choose a mentor? Yeah. If I'm looking for a mentor, how do I even go about doing that?
All right, I'm going to switch this on you a little bit. All right?
Okay.
So you and our relationship, we've been in a relationship for a couple of years. That sounds weird to say a relationship, but we've been friends for a couple of years. You would call me a mentor. So before you ever were had a role at Arise Church, you were already planting a church. And from the time I met you, we really hit it off. And then you actually came to me a couple of years ago, whatever that looks like, and said, hey, would you be a mentor of mine?
Yeah.
Why did you choose me?
So there were characteristics that I was looking for in a mentor. One of the bigger ones was spiritual maturity. I wanted someone that would challenge me spiritually. Right. I think that's hard to read in a book. That's hard to get from a podcast. I feel like that's a relational aspect, and that's probably the biggest thing I was looking for in a mentor. Yeah. And I saw you do that not just in your personal life, but also the way you led your church, the way you led staff, the way you led even in the Assemblies of God, which is where we were connected. So that was something that that was probably my biggest factor, was I want someone who's going to challenge me and help me grow in my spiritual walk, and how especially leadership, how our spirituality goes into our leadership. So that was the big thing I was looking for. And so when we met, I was immediately challenged with that. Right. I think you immediately challenged me with like just questions like, why did you, and so I was like, oh, this is good. Right. That was the big one, and then the other side of it was just longevity in ministry. Was how long you've been in ministry, and then what I heard from other people about you and how you led ministry. And so we were in Ministers Connection, and you were leading this group of church planters, and there was so much encouragement. You were not just encouraging with your words, but you were encouraging with resources and making available. And I was like, okay, this person values and understands the difficulty of this ministry and what it looks like to be in ministry, but has also been doing it for longer than a while and has seen the fruit of it. So those are probably the two biggest things. I didn't know much more about you at that point, but obviously now that I've got to know you, obviously that has poured into how you lead as a father and as a husband, not just as a pastor. And so, but those are probably the two things that drew me to you, and those were the two things that I was really looking for.
So those are really good. That's a great stepping stone to answer the question, how do you choose a mentor? First of all, I would say you want somebody who you want to be like in that area. And this is important. I believe that you can have many mentors in your life. Okay. I think you can have a financial mentor, you can have a marriage mentor, you can have a vocational mentor, you can in church world, you can have a church mentor, a ministry mentor. Gotcha. Because the financial person is going to kind of show you the ropes financially. The marriage person is the one you look at and you go, I love their marriage, I want it to be like that. And you kind of learn from them and follow behind them. In all these different avenues, you can choose different mentors to be different parts of your life. And it's relatively rare that you're going to find somebody who is everything you want to be, right? The one who is vocationally what you want to be, in marriage what you want to be, and financially. That's just not normal. And so it's okay to have different mentors. And so you're looking for people that you want to emulate to some degree in a aspect of their life. I think that's huge. You also don't want people who are too far beyond you. So years ago, somebody gave me this advice for our church, and it was massive. They said to me, one of the best things you can do is find a church that's 2 to 3 times larger than you and make them a mentoring church, meaning that leadership there, because they've been where you were not that long ago.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you want somebody to mentor you, it's really good that they're not way beyond you, right?
Yeah.
All right. If you make $30,000 a year and you want to be mentored by somebody who's a multimillionaire, there's such a big gap between their experiences that they're probably not the best mentor for you.
Yeah.
So you want somebody who's beyond you. You know, the term Sherpa gets used every once in a while. I had Kingsley Grant on this podcast, and he was kind of joking. He refers to himself as a Sherpa, which is like a guide on a trail that's walking you up the Himalayas or whatever. You know. And so they're just 2 or 3 steps ahead of you is all they are. They ain't got all the answers, but they got the next ones you need. So I think that's important. So how do you choose a mentor? I think you want somebody a few steps ahead of you, somebody that you want to emulate, and you need somebody that has the time and availability for you too, which we'll come back to in a second for how that plays out.
Yeah. Okay, that's so good. The other thing I would ask would be, okay, how do you manage that they're 2 steps ahead with also trying to get wisdom? So if a mentor, I see someone that has wisdom, how do I understand what you're saying as well as they could be completely detached of what's going on, because that's not what ministry looked like, for example, when they were my age or what I was doing. But how do I navigate that boundary of, okay, I want someone that's ahead of me enough to give me the wisdom, but also relevant enough to understand the new challenges that are here happening in 2025.
Yeah, I think that's what you're looking for when you're looking for the wisdom. And this is where one of the questions that comes in, I'm just going to jump into it now.
Yeah.
There's a difference between a spiritual father and a mentor.
Okay.
And sometimes people confuse those. And I'll be honest, especially on the mentor side, it gets confusing. Because the older generation has a difficult time separating spiritual father and mentor. A spiritual father is that older person that basically sees you and applauds you. And everybody needs that. Everybody needs somebody who's like seeing what you do and they're like, hey, great job, you're crushing it. I believe in you. They're coming to hear you preach for the first time, or they're celebrating your kids' birthdays. They're calling you, making sure you're okay. They're calling, hey, you okay? How's life? You look like you were a little down the other day.
Gotcha.
And people that just care about you, they see you. Oftentimes those people can be much older. They're like grandparents, so to speak. And they're spiritual fathers. Now that's different than a mentor. A mentor is these next 3 steps, these next 5 steps. If you just tweak this in your marriage, it'll get a little bit better. Have you considered this, right? Those are mentor type relationships. So when you're looking for a mentor, think mentor, not spiritual father. So you're not looking for somebody so far beyond you. The person that's beyond you, they're going to be well beyond you, hopefully. I mean, just between you and us. I mean, you were a church planter. We have an established church of a couple thousand people. That's a pretty big distance.
100%.
But I still understand church planters. I spend a lot of time with church planters, so that allowed that to work. But if you were to go to the church of 30,000 that doesn't have time to spend time with any church planter and stuff, so you just need somebody that is close enough in proximity to you to learn the wisdom, but far enough away that they have the wisdom.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. That's perfect. I like the difference between the spiritual father and the mentor. Going back to the mentor, okay, so what does that look like? Okay, if I have now separated the two, what does it look like to have a mentor, and what should we expect if I watch you, and what should I expect from my mentor, and what that relationship would look like?
Yeah, this is a great question. This came in, these type of questions always come in on social media when we talk about this. So what happens, unfortunately, is there's almost like, it's like the middle school dance when you got like the middle school boys on one side, the middle school girls on the other side, and they both want to dance, but neither one of them wants to walk over to the other side and like the other side, right? The same thing happens with mentorship relationships a lot of times. Those who are older and more mature desperately love and long to actually pass off their wisdom. They love that. And the younger generation wants that wisdom. They want it, but nobody knows how to actually talk in the first place. Nobody knows how to meet in the middle.
Gotcha.
I mean, how do you walk up to somebody and say, will you be my mentor? That's kind of weird. Or how do you walk up to a young person and say, man, I'd love to spend time with you and mentor you? Like it's just like this awkward little thing. So let me unawkward it for you. And let me tell you where I learned this early on years ago. Many of you know Dr. Michael Brown is one of my mentors. And I was studying this. I wanted a mentor and I started reaching out to him. Now he's famous. He's big time, right? He's got back then a national radio program and answering questions and things like that. And so I reached out to him. I was a little surprised he reached back. personally, reached right back and I was like, okay, that's a little surprising. I said, can we meet together? I'd like to just ask you some questions. I'm going to be up in your area. He lives outside of the Concord, Charlotte area of North Carolina.
Okay.
So I'm going to be in your area. Can I meet with you at some point? I'm just thinking, like, I'm asking for 15 minutes. Like, I'm not thinking anything long. He said, oh, actually, I'm going to go to dinner on this night. He said, meet me at this particular restaurant, and I'll meet you there, and we'll have dinner together. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's amazing, right? I'm like, I like look up to this guy like a hero, and I'm like, wow, he's going to give me a dinner meeting. And here's the key. Okay. When I walked into that dinner meeting, I had a pad of paper, handwritten, I probably had 20 questions, which is more than you need. Yeah. But realistically, I was going to get through 3, 4, 5 of these questions. As that time in my life, I was a young apologist. Dr. Brown is an older apologist, and my questions were all around apologetics at that time period. Now, it's kind of shifted for both of us a little bit now. But my questions are all around apologetics. Now, here's the key. If you will go to your mentor and you say, can I have a little bit of time with you? I just have some questions. And then when you go to them, if you make it worth their time by taking notes, by showing that you respect their answers, come in there with 5 or 6 or 10 questions and literally just pad of paper and start writing them down. And so you ask the mentor this question and you just writing down the answer. And you might have a follow-up question with that, but it's showing that you respect their time. It's also really powerful if you can show that you implemented that. Yeah. So the next time you meet together with your mentor, if you're saying something along the lines of, man, you gave me this advice in my marriage and I started doing this and that was so helpful. Or you gave me this advice and I tried to do it and it just didn't work because it wasn't right here. What do you think about that?
That's good.
It's showing that you're implementing it. That is huge. Because mentors love to give wisdom. They love to help people, but they don't want to help people who aren't helping themselves, who aren't going to implement any of it. They don't want to waste their time. Successful people don't have time to waste. It's just kind of that simple. And so you have to utilize their time wisely. So if you want to choose a mentor, take the questions, sit in front of them, ask the questions, take notes, show that you are genuinely seeking their wisdom. This is not like just hangout time. Yeah. I've heard stories of people that go to their mentor and they sit there and talk about fishing or talk about the Bucks or whatever. And it's like the mentor leaves going, I'm never meeting with them again because that was a waste of my time. They're great people, but that's not what I'm here for. So, ask those good questions, write them down, and then if you can, come back later on to those questions too. If you do that one thing alone, that is absolutely massive.
Awesome.
So,
So it almost sounds like the spiritual father figure is more of the how was the hangout portion versus the mentorship is way more directed and intentional with the conversation.
Yes. So you know him, but in my world, I would look at Pastor Lynn Harper as a spiritual father, but I would never look at him as a mentor, right? And so as a spiritual father, Lynn grabs me, he shakes me. He's like, if you know Lynn at all, he grabs you. He's like, this kind of number. And he's like, oh, how is my son doing? How are you doing? I'm just so proud of you. I've watched what you do, man. I watched you online the other week. Lynn's kids go to my church. And so he'll be like, man, Joshua came back talking about this message and I'm so glad he's at your church. And that's a spiritual father. That's cool. Right. Yeah. And he's also there when you're weak. And so if I'm struggling with something, if I'm struggling with sin or burnout or whatever, Lynn's the one I go to. It's not a mentor. It's good. Lynn. I just need somebody who's going to essentially hold me and say, you're going to get through this. It's okay. That's a spiritual father. Cool. Whereas a mentor is more step-by-step practical instruction.
Awesome. Yeah. I remember one of the sessions that we met it had everything to do with policies to have for church discipline. Right. And I remember it would have been nice if I would have came to you before we were in that situation. Right. But I remember it was, I had practical steps to go forward of how to handle a difficult situation that brought so much peace because I was like, I've never been in this situation before and you had. And so I remember that was a very powerful meeting because it was everything was about that. Right. And so.
Right. Yeah, you wouldn't go to a spiritual father for that. No. You would go to the spiritual father to go, I just had to go through this church discipline. This was rough. I'm exhausted. Man, I'm just wounded from this. That's what you go to a spiritual father. Cool. They're going to pray for you. They're going to love on you. It's more like counseling compared to coaching.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Perfect. All right. Well, let's dive into some of the questions that actually we received from you guys. The first one is from Jalicia. Yep. And she said, as a mentor, how would you help someone discern the difference between a true prompting from God to create, design, build, or release something, etc., versus a desire that's just coming from their own ambitions? Yeah.
Okay. There's 2 ways I would answer that off the top of my head that I think are both valuable to this question. Also, thank you, Jalicia. I know you're not the only person asking this question, but thank you for being the one to ask it. First of all, if it's truly from God, there is a lasting part of it, in my opinion. Things that we develop in ourselves that we think, should I do this or not? If it's just you, it tends to be fleeting. After a week or 2 or maybe a month or whatever, it's like, oh, I kind of forgot about that. Yeah, I thought that was God, but it just kind of faded away, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because that's the way our man-made things are. God has this thing of like consistently coming back, going, hey, you remember this? So 1 month turns into 2, turns into 3, turns into 6, and you're still kind of like sitting back going, oh, I got to do that. I got to do that. I think that's one of the key things right there, because if it's just you, it'll just kind of fade away. If it's really God, it'll stick. It's got stickiness to it. The other thing I'll say about this, and I think this comes up in a few of the questions, is I would be careful with this idea, is it me or is it God? As I've said many times in our church, Dr. Dallas Willard, one of my spiritual heroes, the great philosopher and theologian, Dallas Willard would say that God's goal is that he would look at you and say, your will be done. That your character would be so developed that your will would be God's will.
Well, that's good.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I would just push back on the way the question's asked a little bit, because there's an assumption that it could just be me doing my thing. I want us to get to the place in our character so developed that if I want to do this thing, it's actually, that's God. I'm really doing God's will there. And then you have the obvious things. Doing good is never a bad thing, right? It might not always be the right thing, but I think God would rather us do the good thing, even if it's not the God thing, at least in a moment, and you figure it out later.
Yeah.
I'd rather us be action oriented with those things.
Yeah. Awesome. So, okay, that's great. She asked another question. She asked a few, which were really good. So thank you again. When God reveals a new identity or calling that feels bigger than how they currently see themselves, almost like a calling up, how would you guide, as a mentor, how would you guide someone into growing into that identity with confidence and maturity?
Yeah. So if you have a unique calling, let's say it's to be a missionary, or you have a call to special needs children or youth ministry or whatever, you need, first of all, a mentor in that area. Now, here's a key to mentorship as well. We tend to associate mentorship as this, sitting here one-on-one. But here's the fact. Some of you are watching this and you'll never meet me, but I'm mentoring you through this podcast. Mentors come in podcasts and you will never meet them. Mentors also come in books.
Yeah.
And so that's the big one that I would say for this question. So if you feel a niche calling, and it can be hard to find a mentor in that niche, right? Again, let's say special needs ministry or something, that there's not like special needs ministries everywhere, but there should be, but there's not.
Yeah.
Like read books on it. Go study it. A lot of books, sometimes we tend to look at the newest books, and sometimes it's the oldest books that are the best.
Yeah.
I was just talking about Dallas Willard, but I mean, he passed away a number of years ago now, and his books from the 80s, I literally just read one of his books from the 80s, and it's still as relevant now as the day it was written.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to spiritual doctrine and disciplines and theology, it doesn't really change much, thank God.
Praise the Lord.
Right, so books would be a big one right there. Yeah. So if you want to grow in your confidence, study something. If you want to grow in that calling and that confidence, study it. And I would say the books are the biggest one, podcasts are second, if you can't have a personal mentor in that area.
Awesome. You kind of just answered this, but Darwin asked a question, and he said, can a mentor help someone develop and mature into spiritual gifts, such as prophecy? And if so, what does the healthy guidance in that area look like?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's very specific. How would you say in person, but also how could you even receive that type of guidance through podcasts or books and stuff like that?
Yeah. So gifts, like, and I love the fact that you even mentioned prophecy, Darwin, because gifts are incredibly powerful. And there's something about gifts that actually, when a person is gifted, it draws my gift out. So I tend to be a teacher. That's one of my giftings. If I'm around really good teaching, suddenly it pulls my teaching gift out. It's like all of a sudden I get things that the teacher's not even saying, but I get all this other revelation because of just being in their presence. I have the apostolic calling, and so if I'm around other apostolic leaders, it just invigorates me, and all of a sudden my gifting starts really flowing, right? Cool. If you will get around the gifting that you want or have, you will naturally have that gifting start pulled out of you, right? So I'm not an evangelist at all. That's one of my lowest ones, right? Shepherding and evangelist are kind of low on my fivefold. But if I'm around evangelists all the time, all of a sudden I'll start wanting to do evangelism.
That's cool.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
Just getting around the people, and in this case, the prophetic. And if you're in Darwin, I know you are, but at our church, we have a once a month prophetic activation night kind of thing. Get around that if you're not already doing that. Lori Skipper leads that. Go to that, be around that prophetic teaching, that prophetic inspiration, and you'll find that being around it, it's kind of like iron sharpens iron, right? Yeah. Get around it, and all of a sudden it just brings it to life, and you get more developed in the gifting, and you just get more passionate about the gifting.
That's really cool.
I've said for years, some people think my wife has a gift of healing. I don't think she has a gift of healing. I think she has a gift of faith, and she did not always have that. But she went through a season where she was watching so many YouTube videos, so many stories of healings and miracles and signs and wonders, and just chewing and eating and hungering after these things, that all of a sudden her faith just rose way up. So she prays for people and they're healed all the time.
Wow.
And it's just that she has empowered this faith gift by nourishing herself on that. I can think of missions trips that we've led, and back when I was leading mission trips, it's been a while now, I don't do that in our church anymore now, but back when I was leading missions trips, we would do a lot of prayer evangelism, and we would pray for the sick and see them healed, and that was a key part of what we did.
Gotcha.
Because I was there, I could preach, and we would do like healing crusades, miracle crusades. That was the kind of thing we would do. And so I would have our whole team read certain books on like spiritual healing and watching how to pray for the sick, and all these books full of testimonies, and I would watch their faith level go up. Wow. I would also start emailing them, probably about a month out or so. I would email them every day or every couple days, healing testimonies on YouTube, and I would say, hey, watch this testimony, watch this. Yeah. And so by the time they actually get to whatever foreign country we're in, now they're just like so full of faith, they're just walking around praying for everybody, and they're all being healed.
That's cool.
And it's just normal to them because they've saturated themselves with it for a month.
Wow.
So Darwin, I would say the same thing to you and anybody else who's watching. Put yourself in that area of prophecy, if that's the gift you want to develop. Put yourself around other people with that gift, and it'll naturally start coming out.
Awesome. Is there like a safe place? Because I think a lot of times, like especially when you're operating in the gift of prophecy, right? A safe place to, and I don't want to say that, but almost get it wrong. You just make sense of like stepping out in faith that I believe I'm hearing from God. Would you see there's wisdom in that of like, okay, if you want to grow in some of these faith, find a place to where you can exercise those gifts as you're growing them in a place that's safe, for that?
Yeah, I think, yes, there is. All of our gifts have to be exercised and grown, and nobody's going to like suddenly be fully manifest in whatever gift it is.
Yeah.
I don't think there is one that works that way. So if you're an evangelist, you got to go evangelize, and sometimes you're going to stumble over your words, you're going to say things all backwards, and it's just going to fail miserably, and you got to be okay with that.
Yeah.
I do think with the gift of prophecy, yes, you have to do that, but it's also, you got to be very selective of who you're with that. Okay. Because if you are saying, and this is where a good coach will coach you differently, and maybe I need to have Lori Skipper on here at some point and talk about what she does with prophetic ministry in our church. But if you are going to do a thus saith the Lord, that's very important. Yeah. You are speaking on behalf of God. You need to be right. Yeah. So there are better ways of doing it. Instead of thus saith the Lord to you, it's I feel like the Lord is saying this. I sense this. I see this image, and I think this is what it means. Yeah. Those are ways that are much more easy to, get that prophetic word out without being quite so absolute. And in places like our prophetic activation nights that are currently they're on Friday night, I think it's third Friday of the month or something like that.
I think they're doing it the fourth now.
Fourth Friday. And those nights, that's what that is for. And you're around a whole lot of other prophets who are all practicing those giftings. Yeah. It's a safe place. It's a healthy place. And you absolutely need that. But you need that with every one of the gifts, not just prophecy.
Awesome. That's great. Can we go back one more? Because I think I might have, because you gave me one example, one area of it. I want the second area too, because and Chalisa's second question, she asked about how to guide someone growing into the identity with confidence and maturity. You talked about how you can have mentorship through podcast, books, like not here. What's the other way that a mentor could grow us in this relationship? So you talked about the books, you talked about podcasts and how those can actually grow and mature you into this new identity or calling that God has you. As a mentor in person, how does that, as a mentor, how can you encourage someone?
Yeah, if you're saying if it were me, like
if it was one-on-one.
Yeah, if it were one-on-one, I would give people some pretty clear instructions when they leave. Okay. All right, so if you feel called, again, I'm making this up. If you feel called to street ministry, all right, before we meet again, I want you to go do some kind of street ministry, and here are 5 steps to doing that street ministry that'll help you, that'll help it be effective. And then I want you to come back and share with me how that went, and any of them that didn't go well, and any thoughts you learned from it. Gotcha. And that's how I would sharpen somebody's gift, because. Like I said, part of the mentor-mentee relationship is that the mentee has to be doing something with this. Gotcha. All of our time is very valuable, and I don't have time, and most of us don't have time to invest in somebody who's just going to be a dead sea that takes it all in and never goes out. Gotcha. Yeah. Right, and they just harbor it. That's not what it's meant to be. So you always want to give activation steps as much as possible. Really good. Awesome. And I've done this many times. I meet with for this podcast. I meet with a lot of pastors. That's primarily who I mentor are other pastors. And one of the things I talk about a lot is rest, because pastors don't rest well, and that's what leads to pastoral burnout. That's what leads to, adultery or some kind of moral failure. It's always because they're exhausted. It's not because they are just bad people. They're just tired, and when you're tired, you let your guard down. And so I have many times sat with pastors and said, I'm not meeting with you again until you sit with your wife and you pick a date that you're going on vacation and you're taking some time away.
That's good. Yeah.
And when you do that, text me and we're going to have the next part of the conversation. But I'm not meeting with you till you do that. Yeah. And I sort of force them to take vacation. And I'm not kidding when I say it's been more than 15, 20 times that I've done that. And on some occasions, I mean, this is Arise Churches, a lot of people who watch this, on some occasions we've paid for pastors to go on vacation. We've given them a little bit of stipend money because they couldn't afford it. And we said, we need this, you need this, the kingdom of God needs this. We're going to actually help you go on a vacation so that you can rest, so that some catastrophic failure doesn't happen in your ministry.
Yeah. I remember when we were meeting, that was one of the things that you actually did. You were like, you have to, I want something in the calendar. It doesn't have to happen, tomorrow, but something has to be in the calendar with you and your wife. And
That's
so
funny. I don't specifically remember that with you, but I do that with almost every pastor I meet. That's one of the early conversations.
Yeah. And you might have asked it almost every time we met, of just like, okay, when have you rested? When have you taken a Sabbath?
It's huge.
And it is.
Especially as a church planter. Church planters get no time off. You have no staff. It's all you. You do everything. You spend all your own money, all your own resources, your own time, and you can get really exhausted, and then you have some stupid mistake.
Yep. So I remember that was a very common question that you asked. Okay, and then last one. This was really good.
One more?
Yeah, one more. It says, from a mentorship perspective, how can someone grow and walk in their fivefold calling when they don't yet have the proper mentor or covering?
Oh yeah, if I were mentoring a person who asked me that question, and if you ask this question, don't take it personally the way I'm going to respond, but I would push it right back onto that person and say it's not the mentor's job to actually help you grow. It's the mentee's job. And you have resources, you have podcasts, you have books, you have these things, even if you don't have a physical person. And if we were to look at this outside of American context, and we would say, well, is it okay for the pastor in India not to develop their gifts in the fivefold because they're in India and they don't have anybody to mentor them? Of course, we would say, no, you have the Holy Spirit. The book of Acts, they didn't have people to mentor them. I'll be honest, and until recently, I've never had mentors my entire life. I had to kind of figure it out myself, and it's not the best way, but it is a way. And what I don't want to ever see is people make excuses for not developing their gift because they don't have a mentor. And again, I would say, and I might be off base on the question a little bit, but I would say I think you can always find a mentor. I don't think it's that hard if you come with humility, if you come hungry. And you show you're hardworking, you're taking notes, I think you'll find a mentee or a mentor relatively easily. And one of the beauties of the world we live in right now is they don't even have to be here.
That's true.
They don't. I mean, you could have a mentor in another country. You could have a mentor in another state. We got this crazy technology called Zoom or online, and there's a guy a missionary in Costa Rica that I mentor once a month. He Zooms with me once a month, every 4 to 6 weeks or so, and he sits there with his questions. That's cool. I'm on, and I answer his questions, and it's amazing. So
that's really good. Yeah, I've had multiple mentors in my life, but there was a period where I didn't have any, and I was praying, asking, but I still had, like you said, I still had podcasts. You still have books, and I think there is a humility aspect of it. Did I still desire the personal, aspect of it? Yes, absolutely. But I don't think it's an excuse just to stay stagnant.
This is key. You kind of said the humble word. I did too a minute ago. Humility is key in this. There are some people, and I've seen it a number of times, that's like they think that they are just the greatest thing in the world. They wouldn't use that terminology, but they come to you to be mentored, and they come to you with this idea of like, I just want to hear what you have to say, but I really know what I'm going to do, or I'm really all this. And it's like, no, come hungry, and if you're not getting something from the mentor, if you are like genuinely, maybe their wisdom is not at the place you thought it was, just stop the mentor relationship and find another one. But don't come with a little bit of a, like, my ministry is this, and I don't know. I've just seen that, and it's come with humility. Say it that way.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you. Right. That is all the questions we have.
Okay.
As a mentee, I'm grateful for your availability.
Thank you.
I know you were very busy, and so one of the questions when I asked was like, I don't know if he has time for this. And so, but it is cool to hear from the mentor side that you're willing to give this wisdom to those that are hungry and humble enough to receive them. So I appreciate it.
It's been my experience. If you can sit before a mentor and then show that hardworking, taking notes, and you're serious, they'll always let you back because people want to help other people. All right, with that being said, we're going to shut down this episode today. I hope this has been helpful to you. As always, do me a favor and comment. I love to read your comments. Like and subscribe. If you're listening to this on Spotify or someplace where you can rate the podcast, do me a favor and rate it. And I look forward to seeing you back again next week. God bless you guys.